A little over a year ago, this movie called Cats came out, and it was a piece of shit. I said I would talk about it a while ago, but I didn't. And honestly, it was because a lot more insightful reviews from better critics were released, and I just didn't really see the point, because what could I offer that they already didn't? Well, I might have something to say by now, so why not give it a try? Okay, so here are the basics. Cats is based on a famous Broadway musical by Andrew Lloyd Webber. It's about a bunch of jellicle cats who try to compete with each other on, the story is not there, so... Oh, okay. So it's about a cult of cats who are in a competition with each other to see who will be reborn, essentially dying and hopefully being reborn into a new life. And there's like an evil magic cat running around at the same time. That's a boring story, isn't it? It's directed by Tom Hooper, the Oscar-winning director of The King's Speech and Les Misérables. What a career this guy has had, from hero to zero, like the opposite Hercules. And within the movie is an ensemble cast of good actors and other celebrities. The movie was made as an Oscar hopeful for the studio that produced it. I actually remember a behind-the-scenes featurette coming out before the trailer. The cast and crew kept building up the digital fur technology. They said, wow, it's gonna be amazing.
We've used digital fur technology to create the most perfect covering of fur.
And then the trailer came out and everyone was like, this is some freaky shit. And when the movie finally came out, it was a giant disaster. The cast distanced themselves from it. Hooper effectively lost his mojo. The studio said, fuck it, just focus on 1917. And not even Webber liked it. But is there anything in the movie I actually liked? Yeah. I did like the dedication of the cast for the most part. I really liked the giant sets they made, and I didn't think the lighting was too bad. I did think there were some nice visuals here and there, but most of those visuals were nightmarish. Oh wait, that's something I didn't like. There are so many wrong choices. At best, they're confusing or misguided, and at worst, they're just uncomfortable or hilarious. The fuck was that? I don't even want to get into the quality of the visual effects because, I mean, when you hear about the mistreatment that they went through, being forced to listen to Hooper's ridiculous demands, then constantly changing the designs with only a couple of months before the official release, it's like, yeah, no shit, this is what happened. But it's really not the effects that creep people out. It's the choice to make these cartoonish cats with human features. The hands and feet of the actors don't even have fur on them. Why would you think this was a good idea for a family movie? There's a term that gets thrown around sometimes. Unfilmable. Basically, if something like a book or a show has a story or structure that in all likelihood won't work to its full effect within the visual medium of film, then it is effectively labeled an unfilmable product. A great example is the work of H.P. Lovecraft. His work is centered on sheerly horrifying creatures and worlds that are barely comprehensible to the human mind. It's that fear of the unknown that makes the stories work so well. But in movie form, you can't just directly adapt a Lovecraft story like that, because you could end up losing what made it so effective in the first place. I'm not saying works deemed unfilmable are actually and literally unfilmable. Fear and Loathing in Las Vegas, Cloud Atlas, and Dune were all made. Even some decent Lovecraft movies were made, but most of them still don't live up to the original source material. Cats is no different. It's unfilmable because it's based on a show made for musical theater, not for film. The show is basically a bunch of entertaining musical vignettes, and that's it. There's nothing wrong with it when it's like that. You can take time to appreciate the creative sets, choreography, and makeup because it all fits within the conventions and boundaries of theater. As a $100 million movie, this shit is either bizarre, dumb, long, or fucking unnerving. That's not to say this type of story doesn't work on film. Do the Right Thing is basically a series of vignettes within a neighborhood in Brooklyn, but it's all centered on the racial tension between the characters, and it leads to this explosive and emotional finale where you walk away feeling affected by what you just saw. Can you honestly tell me that Cats gave you that same experience? You can't make an entire movie with a bunch of freaky human cat demon cult bullshit and then have no reason to exist on top of that. Apparently a few plot details were altered. This cat wasn't an actual character in the theater version, but he is here. Other characters are cut or scaled down, and the subplot with McCavity is increased. But while it's trying to give the film more of a narrative push, it makes the whole thing worse, because there's a genuine conflict that's going on and it's constantly getting erupted by what feels like a bunch of bullshit. The tone is all over the place as well. The movie can't decide if it wants to be this fantasy musical drama or a silly stupid children's cartoon where James Corden crushes his cat balls. This makes the moments where the movie is actually trying to be emotional or heartwarming much more creepy. It gets to a point where the movie's climax is akin to the ending of Midsummer, just with a different presentation. One aspect of the movie that was especially annoying for me was the attempts to appeal to modern audiences by having half of the cast being comprised of pop stars and niche celebrities. I definitely agree that actors with singing talents should be cast, but did we really need Jason Derulo to show up? What about Taylor Swift? She's in the movie for just 2 minutes. They don't add anything to the movie except to drum up publicity. The most important roles are given to lesser known actors, so I just get annoyed when these people show up for a cameo and then just leave. There are also these comedic scenes that are just horrible.
I can dance how he dances too.
Let me see.
It's easy.
They are fucking horrible. But with all that aside, the real problem with this movie, the real reason why it failed so horribly, is Tom Hooper and his ego. Tom Hooper is a good director in general. His last 3 movies all had Oscar-winning performances, and he definitely has talent and passion for what he does. But I think that type of success can definitely make a person's ego get the best of them and turn projects into embarrassing failures. I can understand the director wanting to challenge himself with something different, but making a movie based on an unfilmable concept that requires extensive visual effects work, something that Hooper doesn't even have experience with, by the way, and trying to make it an emotional musical event with an I'm hot shit attitude is ridiculous. It's about cat people. I do hope that Hooper continues to direct and move on to projects that are more suited for him, akin to Josh Trank. I like to think that he had something of a good movie in his head when he was making this. But at the end of the day, it just seems like he didn't know how to bring his vision to life. It's a failure. It's one of the worst musical adaptations of all time. But don't worry, Mr. Hooper. Hopefully something worse will come up down the line. Someone convince Michael Bay to direct Starlight Express.
These are people, but they're cats, and this is kind of blowing my mind.